Do you feel like you're being gouged at the checkout counter?
Yes, I think it's a grocery store setting the price too high.
Frozen spinach, I've been buying it for 15 years. It's now double. Cooking oil is very expensive. It's just like triple the price.
I think that they're looking for profit and they will find it any way they can.
But no one can afford it. Think of it like single parents or like families. Like, I don't even know how they're affording anything right now.
Good chance you've thought the same thing as Canadian grocery bills get ever more painful. New figures show food prices up more than 11% over last year, the biggest jump since 1981, all while supermarket chains record sky-high profits. So, are you being gouged at the grocery store? Joining me now, economist and director at the Centre for Future Work, Jim Stanford from Vancouver. And in Halifax, Sylvain Charlebois, professor and director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. Thanks for joining us. We will start with Jim. The grocery chains, Jim, point to inflation, supply chain issues, the price of gas, the cost of suppliers. But are the prices higher than they have to be?
All those factors are absolutely true, Erica. There's no doubt the initial surge in inflation that we've experienced in groceries and other items in Canada came from those shocks after the pandemic, supply chains, transportation costs, the war in Ukraine. But there is also no doubt that the companies involved are taking a nice, healthy slice of it all in their own profits. And that is true in supermarkets. Their profits are up. And their margins are very strong, their share prices are high, and their executive compensation has ballooned. So they are benefiting from the inflation that the rest of us are paying. They didn't single-handedly cause it, but they're certainly getting a share of the cream as we go to pay those higher prices.
All right, Sylvain, what's your take on all this?
Greed is a hard thing to measure, isn't it? But a lot of people think they can measure greed. We actually looked at gross margins of the top 3 grocers in Canada over the last 5 years, and we failed to find any evidence of greedflation, if you will. Margins are anywhere between 2 to 4%. A lot of people are bouncing around record profits. That's the rhetoric we hear. But we're talking about amounts, and you want amounts to grow over time, but so do costs. Costs do grow also over time. That's why it's important to look at percentages, and percentages have remained constant over the last 5 years.
Okay, so you're saying no greedflation. Well, take a look at this.
Well, not 1 second. I didn't say that. There may be some issues, which is why it's important for Parliament to look into the matter, because we do think there are some issues up the food chain within the system, not necessarily at retail.
All right, let's take a look at how the major grocery chains are doing. 2 out of 3 major grocery chains have reported record profits in their most recent quarter, significant gains compared to the same time last year and pre-pandemic. So Sylvain, what is your response to that?
You just showed amounts, dollars, again, to my point about percentages. It's important to look at consistency of percentages. This business is all about high volume and low margins. The Royal Bank of Canada actually generated more profits in the last quarter than all Canadian grocers actually made in the last fiscal year combined in Canada. So you have to look at margins, and in the agri-food business, you're expected to make anywhere between 2 to 4%. And the other thing I should add, related to Canada, I know a lot of Canadians are hurting out there, and they think that the inflation rate is out of control. This is a global phenomena. Canada currently has the 3rd lowest food inflation rate amongst G7 countries. We need to remember that.
Well, Sylvain, what do you say, though, to those figures, the record profits that the grocery chains are posting?
Well, they should grow. The thing about profiting or profits, amounts should grow. That's my point, Erica. Amounts, if you look at dollars, and that's what we're hearing right now in the media, record profits looking at dollars, and you want companies to make more money, but margins, percentages have remained the same. In other words, companies that are selling you food are paying more to make sure that you have food shown on shelves.
All right, Jim, what's your take on this?
I think that margin argument is quite misleading, Erica. The reason that the total volume of sales is going up is precisely because of inflation. It isn't because we're buying a higher quantity of groceries. In fact, Statistics Canada just today reported the quantity of things we're buying from supermarkets was down 4% in the last year, but the amount we paid in total was up 4%. So no wonder Canadians are angry. They're buying less but paying more. And you can't look at that situation and then say the record supermarket profits are just a margin on increased volume. Volume has actually shrunk. So they are passing on higher costs, there's no doubt about that, but then they're taking an extra cut in profit as well. And relative to their invested capital, which is how capitalists really measure the success of their business, they're doing much better than Sylvain suggests. A 15% rate of return for Loblaws in the first half of this year. And compared to pre-pandemic times, overall food retailing profits have more than doubled. So however you cut it, there's no doubt they're making money off of this inflation. It's not the sole cause. There are global factors, but this profit maximizing imperative, if you prefer, instead of calling it greed or gouging, this is absolutely adding to the consumer pain every time we go to the checkout.
Well, as we know, Loblaws announced a price freeze on its discount no-name line, saying that they were doing this to help people out. Back to you, Jim. Should the grocery stores be doing more?
Well, I think that no-name freeze thing, frankly, was a bit of a PR gesture. They've got a lot of free publicity out of it. And in a way, it had some unintended consequences. First of all, it did demonstrate that companies like Loblaws do have leeway in setting their prices. They aren't just passing on higher costs from their suppliers, and they have suppliers for these no-name products as well, just like everything else on their shelves. They don't manufacture that toilet paper or yellow packaged butter or anything else themselves. They have to pay suppliers. Secondly, the very day that was announced, one of the other big chains, Metro, said we'll do the same thing, and in fact argued that it was standard practice. So this kind of reaffirmed that the supermarket industry is not a sort of purely competitive industry, that it's a cozy oligopoly. The three chains have a lot of leeway in setting the prices they charge consumers, but also the prices for their suppliers and the prices they pay to their workers. They all cut wages by $2 an hour at the same time, just after the first pandemic lockdown. So I don't think this price freeze will really make a difference in people's budgets, and I do think that the parliamentary investigation is a good step. And this isn't just a problem in this industry either, Erica. Across the board, we've seen record corporate profits in Canada. Energy sector is a big culprit. Wood and forest products profits have gone through the roof because of the shortages and inflation. So this is a bigger conversation, and I'm glad that we're starting to have it.
And in fact, we started this conversation on social this morning, and I'll just quickly show you the response. We asked, do you think you're being gouged at the grocery store? A whopping 95% of those who responded said yes. So, Sylvain, whether they are or not, it certainly seems that is the perception. Briefly, last answer to you, Sylvain, what do you think needs to happen?
Well, two things. One, to Jim's point about demand decreasing, the pie is shrinking right now at the grocery store. Last time I went to school to learn about marketing, if demand goes down, you tend to bring prices down. So Jim Logic's doesn't make sense at all when it comes to retail sales currently. The pie is shrinking. Grocers are fighting to retain market share right now. It's the opposite
prices
of
are
what
up
Jim is saying.
11%.
And the other thing that I see to correct Jim for is that Metro never froze prices. So Metro misled the market. They did not freeze retail prices.
Well, I'm going to jump in here because it's clear that you guys still have plenty to chew over here. So I will leave you to do that and say thank you to both of you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Eric.
Take care.